I don't know about you, but sometimes I just love a good old action movie with lots of gunfire and explosions. Then, when you bring in actors that I like, it ups the excitement to see it even more. The Netflix original movie Outside the Wire stars Anthony Mackie and brings a bunch of action. Did this one satisfy? In the near future, a drone pilot sent into a war zone finds himself paired with a top secret android officer on a mission to stop a nuclear attack. So we have Harp, a drone pilot who gets into trouble and as a consequence is sent to a war zone for some perspective on what he does. He's partnered with Leo, a highly sophisticated android soldier, and then they go on a secret mission to stop a terrorist bent on launching nuclear missiles. This starts off with a pretty crazy action scene. Tons of bullets and explosions. It's setting the scene for what we can expect, and that's not necessarily a good thing. We learn that there are these mech soldiers, robots who take the brunt of the attack, so human soldiers don't have to. We see them right from the start of the movie, and the very first scene looks like it's a cutscene from a video game. It smooths out a bit after that, but that first look was pretty rough. At the same time is when we are introduced to Harp, played by Damson Idris. We get a glimpse into his personality through his actions, and he didn't grab me initially. He's seemingly cold and detached, arrogant, but he's also intelligent and deliberate. Once Harp gets to his new assignment, he's teamed up with Mackie's Leo, who is also hard to connect with. He's standoffish and no nonsense. And just like we learned from the trailer, he's not really human. So this makes his personality make sense. The special effects they use to show us what he is are fairly decent and kind of a cool way to imagine the technology. But ultimately the character is pretty one-dimensional and generic. From here we get an explanation of what the purpose of their mission will be, which ultimately is the plot for the film, and it's overly convoluted. It felt more difficult to explain than it should have, introducing the antagonist through narrative but not scene. I really wanted to like Leo and Harp. That almost sounds like it could be a buddy cop movie. Leo and Harp, coming this fall to Netflix. Well, we get almost no character development on either of those characters, and really no development on any of the players for that matter, but especially with our two leads. And the little that we do get on Harp is very surface level. Mackie and Idris are good actors. I enjoyed watching them perform, but I didn't really enjoy their characters. I really struggled to connect with both of them, but Harp did grow on me a tiny bit though. And because I couldn't really connect with them, there's not much emotional pull when there's conflict. I mean, I'm not invested in their outcome, so I don't feel a sense of cheer if they succeed, or I feel a sense of sorrow if they fail. I mean, regardless of their outcome, I'm just kind of meh. The action sequences in this are jumpy. The camera doesn't really know where to focus most of the time, so it whirls about from one angle to the other. It's like they're trying to create excitement and tension, but the movements are so abrupt with a ton of cuts that it feels more like they're trying to make something out of nothing, to add hyperactivity to scenes that would normally just be run-of-the-mill ordinary. They do use an effect, though, that I am a big fan of. If you've watched Money Heist, there's a sequence with this massive machine gun where the camera shakes and pulses as the gun fires. And it's a really great effect because it gives the sense of the power of the weapon, and it feels more like we're there to experience the shockwaves. And they use that same technique here. And there are times that it's really fun. But then they also use it when weapons are really, really far away from the camera are still being fired. And so we get the pulse of the camera with this shooting, but it makes no sense. I mean, it ends up just being a case of too much of a good thing, which then takes away from the entire use of it. The story is pretty basic, and that's not a knock. I think having a basic story, but told in a unique or compelling way can be wonderful. Here we are introduced to characters and know pretty much zero about them, and then we move on. But those characters are supposed to have some sort of story impact that ultimately makes us sympathize with their cause or make us root against them. But here, they don't do either. They have zero emotional or even story impact, and it makes many of the interactions seem just random. The situations our characters find themselves facing annoyingly jump from scene to scene. There's information or actions that are missing that would make the transition smoother and more logical. I'm not even looking necessarily for ultra-realistic situations. Just show me how something occurred, not just the before and after. The first half of the movie is way slower than the second half, despite there being a lot of action sequences. I was shocked that only an hour had passed because we were getting to what felt like it was building up to be the climax. And then we were only halfway through the film. Now the second half moves faster, but this is also where it loses more of its story and starts making leaps in the storytelling. The pacing is just inconsistent and ultimately makes the movie feel longer than it is. I think this was trying hard to have a social commentary, maybe on war, or I could even make a stretch that it was a commentary on law enforcement. Leo says he doesn't want more people like him because he sees himself as a problem. LEO is an acronym for law enforcement officer. I do think this is a stretch, but I also think I can rationalize it more if I went into spoiler territory. Either way, though, the social commentary is weak and not defined well, and then it's not executed effectively. So if you're just looking for some gunfights, explosions, and hand-to-hand combat, then this might be an okay watch for you. I really like Anthony Mackie, but this was not a great vehicle for him at all. And I was ultimately disappointed in it because the story just didn't deliver. There's no sex or nudity, a ton of profanity, and a ton of violence. I give Outside the Wire 2 out of 5 couches. So what's a good action movie you've seen recently? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.